Hey, what's up you beautiful feckers? How you all doing? Now, when you look at the roster of Warframes we have right now in game, certain ones will stand out for you when it comes to being good at multiple things, like survivability, utility, crowd control, and maybe also a bit of damage dealing thrown in for good measure. But there are only a few Warframes that can fill all of those roles in one go. So Inros has great survivability, great crowd control, and some healing thrown in as well, but his best build for a lot of players relies heavily on the covert lethality mod. That's not to say it's a bad build, far from it, easily one of the best setups in game. Octavia can deal tons of damage but needs that stealth or else she's dead. Same with Loki and his disarming setup. Equinox can heal, can nuke large rooms depending on which form she is in, can crowd control as well with the spider web setup, and also absorb damage with peaceful provocation. So Equinox is an incredibly good frame. Oberon has a constant stream of healing, can crowd control, and can soak a lot of damage as well before finally being put down. Chroma, well, Chroma isn't what he once was. He's still good, he's still okay, just not close to what his past glories were. Rhino, huge amount of tankiness, can buff your squad's damage but also crowd control when you need to. So you get the picture. There are a lot of Warframes that are incredible right now. Hell, even Revenant, whenever he gets released, could be the next best Warframe. Who knows, if you believe in actually having a best Warframe. Now, one of the Warframes for me that stands out the most is easily Nidus. He's an incredible Warframe, and definitely one of the best all-round Warframes we have right now. He is a tanky Warframe, he can crowd control, he can heal, and he can buff a player's damage as well, or choose to reduce incoming damage by 90% just by linking to an enemy. So he's kind of a jack of all trades, and in the right hands, a master of them all as well. Whether you want to mod him with normal mods for a power strength setup and survivability, or hell, maybe you just prefer to go with crowd control on certain missions with a spaghetti larva build, and he can easily solo a 1 hour mod survival without breaking too much of a sweat. So you can choose to go a lot further than 1 hour if you want, if you don't get bored like I do. And that's what this footage is. It is a 1 hour mod survival, and the build I'm using is my Umbral mod setup for Nidus, which isn't necessary on him. You don't need to use those mods, but it does make him a lot harder to kill. And when it comes to the Umbral mods, there are probably only a handful of Warframes that you could actually justify putting them on, and Nidus is definitely one of them. Now, if you're relatively new to Warframe or even Nidus and don't know what he's all about or maybe where to get him, then let me explain what he does in the simplest of ways. First off, to get your hands on Nidus, just complete the Glassed Gambit quest for his main blueprint, then go ahead and farm Rotation C of the infested salvage mission on Eris called Ostrus. RNG be kind, because it might take you a while to get all of those parts. Nidus is our infested Warframe that stomps his feet to build mutation stacks, which will also increase his damage output, while at the same time these stacks are then used as a currency for him to activate some of his later abilities. So when he stomps with his first ability, Virulence, it will cause an infested wave to reach out in front of him. Each enemy hit by this wave will add to the growing mutation stacks that Nidus then builds up to a maximum of 100 stacks. He will visually change and become more mutated with the more stacks that he actually builds. His second ability, Larva, is used to pull as many enemies into a ball as possible. Just group them all up into one so that you can then stomp them with that wave and build your stacks a lot quicker. It is also an incredibly good crowd control ability. So you're building his stacks to increase his damage output and then make him extra pretty, I guess. These stacks, like I said, are then used to activate his two final abilities. His Parasitic Link ability will cost 1 mutation stack to activate, and it can be cast on an enemy or on a teammate. On an enemy, it will send all incoming damage to you to that enemy instead and reduce the damage that you take up to a maximum of 90% damage reduction once you have 180% power strength or more. So the enemy turns into a kind of immobile turret that just stands there and absorbs all of the damage that was meant for you. Now, if you choose to cast Parasitic Link on a teammate, it will then boost yours and that teammate's ability strength up to a maximum, I think, of about 100%. So your powers and the teammates' powers are going to be much more effective than they were before. Now, Nidus' final ability is called Ravenous, aka his infested grass. This ability will heal you and any teammate that stands on it, and it scales with power strength, while also summoning little maggots that run around and attack enemies while crowd controlling them and dealing small amounts of toxin damage. Now, if you choose to stomp your infested wave, your virulence, into enemies that are affected by these maggots, the maggots will explode and deal a lot more damage than what your wave would have done on its own, and it will wipe out large groups of enemies relatively easily. So if all of that wasn't enough, the amount of crowd control you have, the amount of damage output you have, and survivability, not to mention whether you choose to, I guess, damage reduce yourself with Parasitic Link or boost yourself and a teammate's ability strength, Nidus also has an undying phase. If he takes a killing blow and has 15 stacks or more of those mutation stacks, he will enter an undying state where he spends those 15 stacks to stay alive and be immune to all damage for 5 seconds while staying at 50% health. So 5 seconds is more than enough time for Nidus to heal right back up and link onto someone else in order to reduce the amount of damage he's going to take, and then proceed to start building those mutation stacks again. So hopefully if you're new to the game, then you can see why Nidus is such an incredibly good Warframe. So that's basically the very, and I mean the very, very basics of Nidus. He has a hell of a lot more depth to him in relation to his abilities and how they scale, but linking to enemies with 90% damage reduction and having your infested grass down and maggots running around blowing up, all the while stomping huge damage numbers into mangled groups of enemies caught in that larva, makes Nidus really fucking hard to kill. So he brings a lot to a squad. Now maybe you think differently, maybe you think that other Warframes are much better at all of these tasks than what Nidus is, then by all means let me know in the comment section below, and maybe I'll do a video like this on one of those Warframes as well. Do me a huge favour, hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, or don't if you didn't. Subscribe for more Warframe, and as always, thanks very much for watching.